Section 22 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Inferno, Canto 22. The Eighth Circle, Fraud. The Fifth Trench, Corrupt Politicians.
Ere now have I seen cavalry break camp, start to attack, or be reviewed, and even at times retreat in order to escape. Scouts have I also seen upon your lands, O Aretines. Raids too have I beheld, and tournaments and tilting matches fought. With trumpets now, and now with bells, with drums and beacon signals made from fortresses. With native and with foreign things, but never have I seen horse or infantry or ship, by sign of either land or sky, set out with instrument of wind as odd as that. With the 10 demons we were going on. Ah, the fierce company! But in a church with saints consort, with gluttons at an inn. Upon the pitch alone was I intent, that I might see all details of the trench and of the people who were burned therein. As dolphins do when arching up their backs they give the warning which bids mariners take measures for the safety of their ship. Even so at times, his suffering to relieve, one of the sinners there displayed his back, and hid it in less time than lightning takes. And as in ditches at the water's edge frogs stay with nothing but their muzzles out, and thus conceal their feet and all the rest, even so on all sides did those sinners stay. And now that Barbariccia was approaching, they likewise 'neath the boiling pitch withdrew. I saw, and still it stirs my heart with horror, one waiting thus, as oft, while one frog stays, it happens that another scurries off. And Graffiacane, who was nearest to him, hooking his pitch-smeared tresses, pulled him up, so that an otter he appeared to me. I knew by now the names of each and all. I noted them so well when they were chosen, and when they called each other, noticed how.
O Rubicante, see thou set thy claws upon him so, that thou peel off his skin.
The accursed all cried out together then, and I, my teacher, if thou canst, contrive to learn who that wretch is, who thus has fallen into his adversary's hands. My leader thereupon drew near to him, and asked him whence he was, and he replied,
Of Navarre's kingdom I a native was. My mother placed me out to serve a lord, for she had borne me to a rascal knave, who both himself and what he owned destroyed. I next in good King Thibault's household served, and there I set myself to graft, for which I pay the reckoning in this heat.
Here Ciriato, from whose mouth protruded as from a boar's a tusk on either side, caused him to feel how one of them could rip. Among bad cats the mouse had fallen now, for Barbariccia clasped him in his arms and said,
Stand off, while I am clutching him.
Then toward my teacher having turned his face, he said,
Ask him again, if more thou wish to know of him, before the others rend him.
My leader then,
Now tell me, knowest thou any among the other sinners 'neath the pitch, who Latin is?
And he,
Not long ago I left a man from that vicinity. Would that like him I still were covered up, for I should then fear neither claw nor hook.
Here Libicocco said,
We've borne too much.
And with his hook so seized him by the arm and tore it that he carried off a piece. And Dragignazzo also wished to clutch him down at his legs, but their decurion then turned right around at them with threatening looks. When they were somewhat pacified again, of him who was still looking at his wound my leader asked without delay,
Who then was he, from whom thou tookst unlucky leave, as thou hast said, to land upon the shore?
And he made answer,
That was Fra Gomita, Galura's man, vessel of all fraud, who, when he held in hand his master's foes, so dealt with them that each is glad. Their money he took, and, as he puts it, let them all off easy, and even in other offices was not a petty, but a first-rate grafter. With him Don Michel Zanche of Logodoro associates. And never do their tongues feel tired out by talking of Sardinia. But oh, look at the other grinning there. More would I say, but am afraid lest that one be making ready to claw my skin.
Then the great provost turned toward Farfarello, who rolled his eyes as if he meant to strike, and said,
Off yonder, thou malicious bird!
If you desire,
thereat began again the terror-stricken man,
to see or hear Tuscans or Lombards, I will have them come. But let the evil claws here stand aside a little, that their vengeance be not feared. And I, while sitting in this very place, for one that I am, shall make 7 come out, when I shall whistle, as our wont it is, when any one of us protrudes himself.
Cagnazzo at this speech his muzzle raised, and shook his head, and said,
Hear the sly trick devised by him to cast himself below.
Then he, who frauds in great abundance had, replied to him,
Tricky indeed am I, when for my mates a greater pain I win.
Here Alichin could not control himself, but said in opposition to the rest,
I shall not gallop after thee, in case thou dive, but o'er the pitch shall beat my wings, the ridge abandoned be the bank a screen, to see if thou alone art more than we.
Now, reader, of a new sport shalt thou hear. Each turned his eyes the other way, and he the first who had thereto been most opposed. The Navarrese chose well his time, stood firmly upon the ground, and jumping suddenly, from what they purposed, freed himself thereby. For this each felt himself to blame, but most the one who of the loss had been the cause. Hence he moved first, and shouted,
Thou art caught!
But little did it profit him, for wings could not outmeasure fear. As one went under, the other flying upward raised his breast. Nor different is the speed with which a duck dives under water when a hawk draws near, who, vexed and baffled thus, flies up again. Then Calcabrina, angered by the flout, flew out behind him, glad that one escaped, because it let him scuffle with the other. And then, the grafter having disappeared, he turned his claws upon his own companion, and grappled with him o'er the ditch. But he, being indeed a fighting sparrow-hawk fitted to claw him well, they both fell down into the middle of the boiling fen. A sudden separator was the heat, but rising thence was quite impossible, they had their wings so limed with sticky pitch. Then Barbariccia, vexed as were the rest, his mates had 4 of them with all their hooks fly to the other bank. On both sides then they speedily descended to their posts, and stretched their hooks out toward the pitch belimed, who now were cooked inside their crusted hides, and thus embarrassed we abandoned them.
End of Inferno, Canto 22.